Hey, welcome back. It's Jim from SoberNow.com. Today we're going to talk about anger management. And this has been a sticky subject for me, kind of a thorn in my side over the years. See, I'm a mental health therapist by day, and what I know about anger management programs is that most of them are highly ineffective. And there's some important reasons for that. The biggest one is that in my experience, what anger management programs tend to do most is teach people how to not be angry, how to repress anger, and there's still, a little bit of value to this. We learn a little bit about controlling our mood, controlling our behavior, not acting on impulse, but really, there's some far more important lessons that tend not to get addressed, like the fact that anger never travels alone. Nobody is ever just angry. They're angry and they're hurt, they're angry and they're scared, they're angry and they're disappointed. But what's most often happening for people like us is that we're using anger to cover up a vulnerable emotion. And this is something that a lot of us learned how to do as children, which was that it wasn't safe to show how we're really feeling. And anger, for a lot of us, became our go to. On the other extreme are an awful lot of us that tend not to express anger at all. Uh, we don't feel safe feeling anger and expressing anger, so we tend to redirect it at ourselves. We tend to stuff it, we tend to uh, talk ourselves out of it. We tell ourselves that we shouldn't be angry, that it's a waste of time and energy. We come up with all kinds of ways and reasons to talk ourselves out of what we're feeling, which of course is always unhealthy. So, first basic lesson about anger, it's a normal, healthy emotion. Everyone experiences it, and how we cope with it is going to determine a great deal about what's possible in our lives. So, notice it. The only way to notice what we're really feeling is through mindfulness, and then pick up on what else am I feeling besides anger. Because I promise you, it's never going to be just that you're angry. Find the secondary thing that's happening, cope with that. It'll make everything a lot more manageable. The first lesson that I offer to folks who struggle with lashing out or have a fear of acting out upon anger is actually a song lyric by Papa Roach. The lyric is, I take a deep breath and I count to 10. I think of all the nice places that I've been. And this is really an exercise in common sense. We know that acting from a place of anger, especially if it's impulsive, is probably not going to go well. So, what we're learning to do is respond and not react. Reaction is like reflex. You go to the doctor, she hits your knee, your leg flies out. That's a reflex. Emotionally, we have something very similar, which is when we're coming from a place where we're feeling guarded or defensive, when we're coming from a place of anger, we tend to speak fast, act fast, and things usually go downhill pretty fast. So, what I ask folks to look for is something that's very simple and very important, but it tends to be something that we don't think much about, which is, am I feeling safe right now? Am I feeling secure in who I am? Am I feeling okay right now? Because if I'm feeling okay, then I can make healthy choices. If I'm not feeling okay, and especially if I'm feeling unsafe, there's an excellent chance that I'm going to say and do things that are not healthy, or at least it won't be my best stuff. It may even be something that I have to regret later. So, I'm paying attention to myself. I'm noticing how I feel. I'm getting to the secondary emotion. I'm taking a deep breath. I'm going to give myself some time to respond. That can be as little as 10 seconds because 2 deep breaths will help you make a conscious decision about what happens next. So my best suggestion to you would be to do a little bit of journaling about this because what we want to get at is what's your comfort level with anger? What's your comfort level with expressing it? And how you most often deal with that. So, if you're a lot of the folks that I know in recovery, our greatest fear is lashing out. Our greatest fear is hurting somebody that doesn't deserve it. And so, the ways that we deal with anger are often unhealthy, and we build new resentments, which is carrying anger from the past. So, we're going to practice those things, we're going to notice them, and then we're going to give ourselves healthy outlets for them. And sometimes that's venting to a friend or to a sponsor. Sometimes that's just being able to take some time alone and decompress. But I think what's vital is that we make a practice out of bringing the anger out into the open so that we don't have to continue to carry it. If you find that you're feeling especially anxious, I'd like for you to get in the habit of asking yourself, okay, if I wasn't feeling anxious, what would I be feeling? Because what I've noticed over the years, especially for people in recovery, is that anxiety is most often a product of trying not to feel what we're really feeling. And sometimes trying not to think certain thoughts, trying not to remember things from our past. These are very unnatural acts. They build anxiety. Anxiety has a nervous energy to it. It makes us more tense, it makes us more guarded, and it makes us more reactive. So sometimes the hardest thing in the world to do is just slow down, check in with yourself, notice how you're coping, and make some conscious choices about what you're going to do next. And I think that'll take you a long way as far as anger management's concerned. The next thing I want to ask you to think about is if you've ever been to an anger management group or if you find that you've struggled with anger, what kind of things tend to set you off? What are the triggers? What are the things in your environment, the people in your life that tend to bring this out in you? Step back, take a look at that. Are you convinced that these are healthy people or healthy situations? Are there people in your life that are toxic and maybe need to not be there? If you find that there's certain folks in your life that you're very reactive towards, there's a good chance that they're an authority figure. And maybe they're literally an authority figure, like an employer, or maybe there's somebody that you've made into an authority figure. We do that in lots of ways in recovery. A lot of us are fearful about making decisions. So, for example, we defer all decision making to our partner, and then we resent them when they make decisions we don't like. But that's just one way in which symbolically or literally we turn somebody into an authority figure. And given our histories, we tend to expect to be treated poorly by people in authority, and we tend to struggle in the ways in which we relate to them. So let's review. Paying attention to self, we're mindful, we're noticing how we feel, we're giving ourselves time to release tension physically, get our breathing back under control, and make some healthy choices about what to do next. If we're finding that there are certain emotions that we're not comfortable expressing, then we need outlets for those. The next level to that is if we find that there are emotions we're not comfortable allowing ourselves to experience internally, that's too self-limiting. That's going to be something that creates pressure for us. It's going to be something that racks up resentment. And so we need to be willing to look at that and say, okay, what is it about that that makes me feel unsafe, and how can I deal with that in a safe way? For a lot of us growing up, what we saw in terms of people expressing or acting upon anger was violence or abuse. And so what we learned was it was a very simple conditioning pattern, which is that anger is bad. Anger is not bad. How people in our past dealt with it was, what was modeled for us was. And so here we are in the course of recovery, learning how to gain some emotional maturity, learning how to respond to situations, to people, places, and things in a way in which we can be true to ourselves and aware of the needs and feelings of others. Anger tends to escalate. If you watch any two given people in conflict, you'll notice there's a point at which people start getting louder, their tone starts getting harsher, maybe they sprinkle in a few of our favorite profanities. So watching that escalation, if you're on the outside looking in, it's not hard to see opportunities for de-escalation or see opportunities to simply walk away or disengage. In much the same way that people tend to escalate each other in anger, we unwittingly escalate each other with anxiety. So being aware of my emotional state allows me to be more aware of the person or people that I'm interacting with. And I can observe that interaction and notice where are things going. This is all stuff that I do at a gut level. I want to intuitively have a sense of how I'm managing myself and how I'm interacting with other people. And it takes a lot of practice, all of which hinges on the thing that we're typically least accustomed to, which is being aware of self. Through the course of addiction, we learn to tune out, we learn to use instead of feel. And so, being, especially in the first year of recovery, we tend to be very raw emotionally, and we tend to be surprised when strong emotions surface when there doesn't appear to be a catalyst or a trigger for that in the here and now. And what I say to folks is, you buried emotions for a long time, so they don't need a reason to pop up today. They can just come up for no apparent reason. So analyzing or figuring those out really isn't what's important. Coping with them is. So email me. Let me know what anger is like for you and how you cope with it. And please send me questions that you have about your recovery and the progress that you're making. And let's keep this conversation going. Thanks.